What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan. You can't see me today due to technical difficulties, which I'll be mentioning throughout the show, but just bear with us. Bad week of technology on my end. Probably unsurprising if you've been listening to the pod for a while that from time to time I have technical difficulties. But my co-host, who never has technical difficulties, Dave Martinson. Dave, what's going on, man?
Yo, drop that coin, get that good tech, and you got reliable ass shit, dog.
Yeah, this is definitely going to push me to not only get a webcam finally, which I've been holding off on, but just getting all the bells and whistles we need to have a successful show. And if you want to support the show and you want me to be able to afford these things, help us get advertising by spreading the word with friends. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a rating and review on iTunes. Share us with friends. We appreciate all your support and interaction with us. We like interacting with you as well. Wanted to start with a callback here to something that we've talked about on about festivals a while ago. I believe it was sometime either last year or the year before. I can't remember. It's been so long. Golden Voice and AEG, two of the biggest in the game of festivals. Their FYF Festival, which is an LA-based festival this year, their headliners, Janet Jackson, Florence and the Machine, and Future, they canceled 2.5 months before their festival was about to go off. They canceled because of low ticket sales in April. They announced this this past Sunday, so that'd be the 4th. Dave, we talked about how festivals, like the bubble might burst, festivals might be dying. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, check out our breakout about music festivals when the first wave of lineups alongside Coachella dropped. You can check that on the YouTube channel and subscribe while you're there. But yeah, no, I've kind of seen two camps about it. Some people just say, it's a, okay lineup. I mean, I think Florence and the Machine in particular is a pretty strong and relatively unique headliner, but, it's a pretty weak undercard when you look down and there's pretty new artists, pretty small artists that are like high up there, But I think ticket sales kind of make sense. There's a lot of music festivals in the country. A lot of them have been around a long time, but I just don't know if there's enough demand. I mean, even something like Governor's Ball doesn't sell out to the very last minute if it doesn't end up selling out completely, So LA has other festivals as well. So I think maybe it was just lack of enthusiasm this year. Perhaps the relative lack of female artists booked at festivals nationwide is bearing fruit and people not showing up. Tough to say. But I mean, Golden Voice, they're not like a random, put on a entertainment business or anything. They also do Firefly and Panorama. So they're an experienced group and it's a long running festival. So it definitely interesting.
Yeah. And actually to your point about the lack of female acts, Golden Voice or FYF Festival, Golden Voice and AEG were actually intentional with this one about booking more female artists. This one has 20, which is one of the highest in the country, which I find interesting that one of the most, at least diverse, gender diverse festivals is being canceled this year and not selling very well. But to your point that, like Firefly, I don't think is sold out yet. Bonnaroo, I'm not even sure if they are, or I know that they didn't sell it last year. So definitely a trend that we're going to be monitoring and talking about, but probably not a good sign for festivals in general. Just some good news before we move into a lot of music news to kind of wrap up this show, even though we're just starting it. Arrested Development is coming back May 29th. And we talked about last week how they did a special cut of season 4. So we'll be talking about that. A lot of movies coming out, a lot of big music projects in June that we detailed. Good time for culture. What are you most excited for in the coming weeks?
Arrested Development, May 29th, Tuesday release for Netflix. That's very rare. They usually dump everything they ever have on Fridays. But, I think Arrested Development, most would agree, season 4 wasn't the strongest. That was the first Netflix season. But those first 3 seasons, despite being low rated when they came out in the early 2000s, so critically adored, arguably one of the greatest comedies of all time on television. In terms of modern comedies, it's right there with The Office and Veep, as well as Parks and Recreation. So it's a big deal for sure. And they got the whole cast coming back, including Jeffrey Tambor. Ted Sarandos said that Tambor will be doing the press. They're not shying away from him. They're actually standing by Tambor, despite the fact that they, you know, quickly cut ties with someone like Kevin Spacey. So it sounds like Netflix is taking it on a case-by-case basis and basing it off of that. There was no, they have no issues with him in the time he worked at Netflix. They're not going to just blackball him the way Amazon rightfully has over the transparent stuff. So that's interesting. But I mean, this is Jason Bateman's best role. You know, Will Arnett's hilarious in this. This made Ali Shawkat. Like, there's so much to love about Arrested Development that even if it's not as great as the genius first 3 seasons, I'm still excited to see it.
Yeah, and the thing about Arrested Development is it's the show. It's kind of show if you watch it over and over, you're always gonna pick more stuff up. The writing in that is like on another level compared to even those other shows that you mentioned. So Arrested Development is really exciting, and just like you said, coming out Tuesday, they must feel like this is gonna draw a lot of eyes no matter when they drop it. Yeah, but to kind of go back to my original question, with all these different things coming up, what are you most excited for in May and early June?
Pusha T, King Push, or whatever they call it, May 25th. Hyped as fuck for that. I'll be gallivanting Europe at that time, but can't wait. I'm excited for Solo, as I've said before, cautiously optimistic, and I'm looking forward to Deadpool 2 as well. There's a lot of shit coming out. Fahrenheit 451 on HBO looks good. The Tale's supposed to be great. I'm even kind of looking forward to what Shawn Mendes does in his 3rd album, because he's like really popular and seems to be evolving as a singer. So yeah, there's a lot of and of course the Kanye album, assuming it comes out June 1st. So I'm excited for most things coming.
Yeah, so I mean, Solo's up there. The trailers have gotten better and better, so I'm really excited for that. Definitely the Fahrenheit 451 as well. Let Michael B. Jordan just cook as much as he wants. Yeah, and then obviously Kanye, really excited for that. I'm also excited to see how the new Billboard streaming standards are going to affect these ratings. So for anyone that's just tuning in for this breakout, I'm having some technical difficulties. We explain it. You should go back and listen to the whole pod if you have time. But we're, you know, you brought this to my attention. I think it was at the end of last week that Billboard was changing their streaming, I don't know, levels or how they're calculating it. And it seems like it's a pretty detailed change that, you know, it's kind of going in like this point system, with paid streams being 1 point, ad streaming being 2/3 of a point, and program streams being half a point. But then they're also moving it to these 2 tiers of paid subscription starting in 2019 with, you know, if it's a paid subscription with full album access, it counts differently than partial music library paid subscription. What are your thoughts around these changes? I know we've been kind of talking about how Post Malone is affected by this. So what are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I mean, Post Malone, we reviewed Beer Bonds and Bentleys last week. Check out that review, SoundCloud.com/Nowstalgia pod, and on YouTube, of course. And Post Malone, we acknowledge that he's a streaming giant, incredibly popular. Stoney, again, was a top 10 album just this week alongside Beer Bongs and Bentleys, which went #1 with fucking, where is it, 461,000 equivalent units. That's including 153 traditional sales. And probably most impressively, he had the biggest single streaming week of all time with 431 million streams, which blows away the previous week record, which was Drake's More Life at 384. Part of that is that more people have streaming now than they did last year. That's obvious, but Post Malone's incredibly popular. Now, he did sell a healthy amount normally of traditional sales, most likely iTunes, but also, you know, traditional CDs. But, you know, you don't get from 153 traditional to 461,000 equivalent without a fuck ton of streams. And that would be affected with these new rules, because the assumption would be that Post Malone, most of his fans are young, and most young people don't pay for streaming, or at least young people use ad-supported streaming services more than you know, older people. That's the general wisdom anyway. And the basic gist of it, as you said, is that you're just emphasizing paid streams. They're giving them more weight in counting charts. And, you know, as we've seen the rise of SoundCloud, you've seen an artist like Lil Pump, Gucci Gang, #3. The Gucci Gang music video and Gucci Gang in general, a 2-minute song can rack up streams a lot faster than a song that's 4 minutes long. And this kind of all be affected to a certain point. But ultimately, you know, I think it's relatively good sign, just because, you know, back in the day when something went 10 times platinum, that was 10 million albums sold straight up. You know, streaming, despite being the way we listen to music now, does kind of cut the corner in terms of a platinum album means less than it used to. So I think it's just cool for history, and it's not going to really change much in terms of how artists get paid. So it's not like much of a negative in that regard. But I am curious to see how it affects the charts in terms of hip hop. Obviously, has been dominating overall, most popular genre now, but it doesn't sell as much physical as rock does when rock is around. Like, you'll remember, like Foo Fighters last year, majority of their big debut #1 week was traditional sales. So it might help other genres more than hip hop, which is the current leader. But, you know, I think it's interesting to see. Now,
Yeah,
for albums,
go ahead.
One last thing for albums. It used to be like 1,500 streams counted as one album sale, right? Now they're switching it that it's $12.50 for paid streams, so it's less. But now for ad-supported streams, it's $37.50. That almost seems like a bit of an overcorrection, because that's a lot of streams to get to one sale. But, you know, counting streaming is good, just because, you know, you're basically rewarding the repeat listening. So if the song is good or the song is popular, it gets counted more. So, you know, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. As two baseball fans, we really care about history, obviously. So it's something that you know, you want things to be accurate. You don't want things to get skewed just by the fact that, you know, you can kind of game these systems in ways. But it's also, you know, like the double-edged sword of it is, I don't really care as much about the Billboard Top 100. I do care about like platinum and things like that. But at the same time, with so many options, people are going to be into different things. Some people are going to be into rock, which, like you said, it's not been dominated as much. And I think it, you know, kind of going back to what we were talking about with Kanye, if you're following these things and this is how you're kind of gauging what's important in music, step outside that box, be a free thinker, grab onto your dragon energy, and you know, just go with what you like. It doesn't really matter to me anymore if these things go platinum or gold or silver. Like, I do like the idea of it being more accurate, though, so I'm on board with this. I also wonder if, like you said, if these are the right ways to change it. I think something like listening to an album straight through might be a way to really calculate like streaming sales, although no one really does that anymore. So, right. I mean, back in the day, if it went before you had this kind of technology, people actually had to go buy these things. So now the fact that someone clicks on an album, listens to one song, and then clicks off, does that really you know, represent a real album sale?
Yeah,
so there's two ways around it.
I mean, I think this will discourage like faking or gaming of streams, because there's less incentive to fake the free stream. And I mean, are you really gonna work at gaming paid streams? It seems harder to do, and also probably would discourage just blatant chart chasing track list lengths like Migos Culture 2, right? Because it's less advantageous, especially when your genre is more likely to use the ad supported. But I mean, what's this really going to affect? This hurts YouTube's effect on the chart to a certain extent. So counts, of course, SoundCloud, not SoundCloud Go, just straight up SoundCloud, as well as Spotify's free tier. So any of their paid services are actually, you know, increased in value. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in terms of the next big, like Drake, for example. The effects go into effect end of June. So actually probably Drake gets in ahead of it. But I want to see the next big release, see how this goes, because, you know, like artists like Adele and Taylor Swift, their most recent albums were not on streaming right away. So because they have such a baked in massive fan base, they can just push all these straight up album sales, but most people can't do that. So yeah, it's really interesting just in terms of, you know, following the music game to see how the artists will react to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this affects the charts. Somebody that I don't think it will have an effect on is our guy Childish Gambino. Someone that is just totally dominating the culture game right now. You know, Atlanta hit show and syndication.
I mean, syndication.
He dropped.
What are you talking about?
Not syndication. Right. I was like thinking about that. I was like, I don't think that made sense. Wait a second. A hit show with a lot of critical acclaim was what I was really going for. Released Redbone, which got a lot of love. His Grammy nomination,
top 10 hit, I think.
A lot of critical acclaim. And I mean, he's been around for a good part of at least a decade now.
He's in his 30s.
Yeah, so he's beloved in culture right now. Guy couldn't be hotter. He's going to be Lando Calrissian in Solo. And he dropped on SNL 2 new songs. He hosted and performed as Childish Gambino this week. This is America, which had a music video directed by Hiro Murai, who, I mean, if we want to talk about heaters, that guy's on a goddamn heater right now.
For sure.
But Saturday as well, which was a pretty fun song. Gambino's retiring after his next album. That's what he said publicly. I think both of us are a little unsure if that means that Donald Glover as a musical artist is done. But
correct.
What was your take on these songs, and what do you expect from a new Gambino project?
Yeah, no, I think it perhaps marks a new shift for him musically. It's tough to say, but I think you could probably easily say that Awaken My Love, his most recent album from December 2016, was probably the self-loving one-off experiment in terms of the R&B funk love that the album was. I think that was very much just what he felt like doing and making, right? Like a homage album, because what these new songs are not that. And what they are, though, I think, especially This Is America, it's, actually it's like incredible commentary on like police brutality and gun violence and stuff like that, and done in like a unique way in terms of how it's playing off like the emotions of the way he's performing it. I think it's a really impressive song, and especially from a guy who's evolved from some pretty corny lows in his music career. He's really come a long way, and especially in hip hop, I was very impressed with just him being able to put this into a song that's actually good, because I feel like his ambition and his creativity has always been there, but in the past his execution has been weak. So I'm happy to see this being awesome, because musically he hasn't been more popular musically than now, so I'm happy he's continuing to actually nail it.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people talking about with Kanye's status dropping a bit socially, that Donald Glover might be the person that can step in and take that creative place in the culture. And this song, I mean, with the music video, like you were talking about, is so well done, so thoughtful, and such a commentary on, I think, not only living in America, but being Black in America and what it means to be in America. So there's a lot of really great things behind it. And I think, Saturday wasn't necessarily a song that impressed me that much, but I think just the way Donald Glover chooses to continue to search for new sounds and not just like rest on his laurels is really really worth noting, especially because like he started his monologue with SNL. I don't know if you watched it, but he basically was like, I'm Donald Glover, I'm going to be in the new Star Wars movie, and I was on the show called Community, and if you're Black, I made Redbone in Atlanta. It's like, it's like a perfect way. It's almost like he's embracing his own self at this point. So definitely really exciting to be following that. Now, in terms of the Donald Glover project, I mean, do you think this would be his last one as Childish Gambino, or just his last music project in general, or do you think it's actually going to be his last one?
I can't see him abandoning music for good, just because there are only so many outlets for him to be creative. TVs, movies, and music are his main things. Maybe he'll do some theater from time to time. That's the acting realm, I think music will always be an outlet for him. But I think, as we said before, when he mentioned that he would retire the name, and back then it sounded like he would just stop. Perhaps he'll just go long stretches like a Justin Timberlake and just not really be musically involved for a long time. But he did just get that new deal for his music. So we'll see. Yeah, to your point about Saturday, I would like to hear what that sounds like as a studio recording, before judging it. But I did agree I was not as high on that as This Is America. But yeah, I mean, his career is really interesting, and I recommend the New Yorker profile that dropped back when Atlanta season 2 started. It's a really long read, but really gets into how he's kind of in his own head about the love people have for his creativity and his genius, and it's especially interesting in terms of how he's accepted by Black culture and white culture. So he's a fascinating figure, but he's also definitely the creative we need right now, when the guy who used to be in this mold has been having some tour meltdowns. So very excited for what he has next. And of course, I'm sure he'll be great in solo, and he'll be in Simba or Lion King as the voice of Simba next year. So bright future, to the surprise of absolutely nobody.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mentioned Hiro Murai before. If you haven't been paying attention, this dude directed 7 episodes of Atlanta, one of the most well-received shows on television, not in syndication yet, though. He directed episode 6 of Legion, which was absolutely fantastic, and we'll probably be mentioning as when we do our recap of the season. And he also directed 2 episodes of Barry this season, and one of them had probably one of the coolest shots of the season with I think he directed the one where they were like driving up with like the music blaring and the gunshots come through the car. Just incredible filmmaking. And I mean, this music video is a testament as well to his skill.
I mean, those 3 shows you mentioned, those are probably the 3 best American made shows that are on right now.
Yep.
And he's had a part in all of them. Yeah. He was someone I was not really familiar with, because up until he started working with Glover, he was a music video guy. Mm-hmm. So quite the meteoric rise for him as well. I'm sure he's turning down offers left and right at this point.
Yeah. Oh, I can only imagine. Something that we're excited to see and weren't able to get tickets for is Childish Gambino performing this September. And Rae Sremmurd is going to be opening up for him in September in New York City. Rae Sremmurd dropped Shrem, which the 3 replacing the E. Mm-hmm. And this was a triple album with Rae Sremmurd collaboration, Sway Lee album called Swaycation, and Slim Jimmy, not Lil Jimmy, jeez, Slim Jimmy with Jimtro. Is that what it's called? Jimtro. And this was their 3rd album. Very ambitious album. The cover art was a clear nod to Speaker Box, The Love Below, Outkast's album back from the mid 2000s, which went 11 times platinum. That album.
Back in 03 or whatever that was.
So that ain't from streaming numbers, dog.
That's dollars, dog.
And I mean, this is an hour and 40 minutes. So this is probably the longest album of this year that I've listened to. Just beat out.
Well, it's slightly shorter than Migos. It's like,
is it really slightly shorter than Migos?
Despite being 3 tracks longer, it's like 4 minutes shorter than Migos. So it's effectively the same length. God
damn. Just ridiculous. I mean, Rae Sremmurd, they burst on the scene in 2014 with No Flex Zone, undeniable, fun song, and then really blew up with Black Beatles and the Mannequin Challenge.
In 2016.
2016. So 2018, 2 years after the last album. Is this a good album? Is it worthy of being a triple album?
So I think it's worthy of the triple album just because they, as we said before, they actually tried to make it unique. There's a straight up, sequel to their first 2 albums in Shrem 3, and then you have the solo albums that follow, Swaycation and Jimtro. And people have always been joking around since they brought up, Sway Lee should leave Slim Jimmy behind. He's way better. Similar to how people used to say, Quavo and Offset, they should leave Takeoff behind. Meanwhile, I think Jimmy, like Takeoff, has gotten substantially better since they've been a group. But yeah, I think this justifies the length just because it's 3 distinct discs that are all under 40 minutes long. So you can kind of jump in and out of them because they all have kind of their different vibe. And, while I still think there's some bits of filler on each disc, I think overall, it's more worthy of its length than Culture 2, which was just a lot of bloat and the same thing front to back.
Yeah, definitely. This is way more interesting than Culture 2 in so many ways. But I think the fact that they did split it up, and it seemed to like, especially Swaycation and Jimdro had very different ideas. I think you probably could have taken the best songs from those ones and just put it onto the Shrem
I agree.
part and made one just like decently 12, 13 track album. But what we kind of break it down. So from Shrem, what were the standout moments for you? What were things that you weren't really too high on?
Right. So I think, overall, with their first two albums in mind, I was actually the lowest on Shrem 3 versus the two solos, just because it's only 9 songs, and we'd already heard 4 of these songs. Yeah. Power Glide, their second single, my favorite song on that disc. It's already on our Spotify playlist. Check that out if you're not following it already. But then Perplexing Pegasus, that came out in November. That was an old, we thought it was a promotional single when it came out. Nope, that's still here. Then Teed Up, which also, is an okay single. And then Close with Travis. So like I'd heard 4 of the 9 songs already. 2 of the other ones have a feature. So I thought that disc was okay. But then I think Swaycation really switches up the vibe, as you said, because it's, Sway Lee actually doing the singing that he's kind of done here and there. Then last summer with his big hit with French Montana, Unforgettable, number 3 in the country, you'd be like, oh, wow, Sway can really rock like an R&B song. Yeah, that's basically what he did in this whole album. And, he can really hit those falsettos. And I thought it was a much more breezy listen. And then Jimmy has always been ignorant as shit. And that's what this disc is. Yeah, and it's fun. And that's what you're listening to it for, and he delivers. So I think I think, Shrem 3 itself was probably I was underwhelmed by it, just because Shrem Life 1 and Shrem Life 2 both have 6 hits each, like they straight up bangers. And I don't think Shrem 3 has that as many, but they're trying different things. I got to give credit to them, even if it's not totally hitting.
Yeah. I think if anything, these guys are just catchy as hell. Like even Perplexing Pegasus, a great single. I heard it again, and I kind of skipped through ones I had heard before, like Power Glide. I get it, another infectious song, but like I heard it and I was like, I'm gonna jam out to this right now. Like that's the thing I think you have to give Rae Sremmurd a lot of credit for, is even though these guys have such different styles, kind of in the same vein as Outkast, when they come together, they can make bangers. And
right.
I know that you kind of tweeted about Zoe Kravitz's moment on this, but like a song like Antisocial Smokers Club really stands out as just like a fantastic song that I was not expecting to hear something like that in this album. But when I did, I was like, yes, this is what Rae Sremmurd can be.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. You know what vibes I got from that song? That reminded me of Natalie's rap from Lonely Island with Natalie Portman, because Jimmy wrote the verse for Zoe Kravitz. He said that.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, she's cool. We have mutual friends. She vibed and she fucking wrote the verse. And I think her feature price will be up now. But yeah, it's an ignorant song. I think her like cadence, like it's a simple flow, but she really rides the beat. And yeah, that song is just really ignorant. I think that's the highlight of Jimdro.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. What was the highlight of Swaycation for you?
Honestly, it was probably Hurt to Look, the lead single, because I remember when that dropped. I remember Joe Budden was tweeting. He's like, wow, Sway, I wasn't planning to get in my feelings today, man. Why'd you have to do that to me? But I think that kind of like shows the promise of Sway Lee. I mean, overall, again, I think, there's songs that can blend together. You can probably skip some of these, but I think Hurt to Look kind of just shows that, wow, this guy both can be a great rapper has great chemistry with his brother, and then he also can really do R&B stuff. And I mean, I think Sway Lee is one of the most important people in hip hop, because he's one of the best, if not the best, at doing both rapping and then flipping it into R&B. He's very much like Drake in that regard.
Yeah, no, I was actually really surprised. I mean, it was very trap heavy, and it had some like elements of psychedelia at times too, a bit of a Flatbush Zombie vibe at times, but really the way that Swaycation kind of ebbed and flowed together was really impressive. And I thought the production throughout this was just really great. It's a Mike Will Made It production pretty much. I mean, there's only a couple songs he didn't have his hands on, so I was really impressed with this, to say the least. I mean, especially because I see Rae Sremmurd mostly as a fun, group, like a group that I'm gonna nod my head, be excited to see the festival, but not one that I really was gonna take seriously for like critical acclaim. But they showed me some things on this album that I think leave a really bright future for them.
Right. Yeah. I think the lasting takeaway is, as you said before, if we kind of cut this all down into one disc, maybe like a 14, 15 tracker, it would be super, super strong. But despite that not being the case, I think, they didn't just run it back again. Even on Strem Life 2, they made a song like Black Beatles, which, as we all know, took off. But these are guys that are willing to, do different things. That's not like they're not lyrical. We know that. No one's expecting that from them, but they're still doing different sounds and, trying, different things on their album. And I'm really happy that they continue to, go for this and not just feel content to just kind of pump something out for the sake of, going for the charts. And it's funny because they're not actually like big chart movers. It's projected to do 55 to 60,000 first week, which actually is much more than Strem Life 2. Strem Life 2 kind of flopped when it came out, and then it was bolstered later when Black Beatles took off. So, if they wanted to go for radio, they could have, but they didn't do that. They're not worried about that, and they're actually just trying to, do different things. And I think that's what you get on this album.
I wanted to ask, other than Zoe Kravitz, what's your favorite feature on this album?
Right. So I think Travis was kind of weak on Close. The Weeknd was fine. It's probably Future. I think Buckets is pretty good.
It's not Pharrell with that weird alien thing.
So my friend Jose tweeted me or texted me that he was loving that verse, and like Pharrell's kind of been active in the feature game lately. Post that Nerd album. I think it's a fun rap verse from him. Probably one of his best in a while. That's a weird song though. I guess. Yeah, I guess he's in the mix too. I thought Young Thug actually was pretty solid on Offshore on Swaycation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think The Weeknd, that song drags on a little bit, and it probably could have been a minute and a half shorter. But overall, I really was digging the way that not only was he singing the hook on that, but just like the way he kind of melded into the vibe of that song in general. I thought he really stole that track. Anything else from this album that you think is worth mentioning, worth talking about, anything we're missing?
I just think give these dudes a shot, because I think a lot of people weren't that familiar with them until Black Beatles came out. I mean, No Flexo, No Type, those are big songs from Strem Life 1. And then, they got Throw Some Mo and Nicki Minaj and This Could Be Us and Come Get Her. Like there was cuts on that album, but they're not really like pushing numbers, which is interesting because like they got like a lot of Instagram followers. They're like famous guys and they do great on tour, but it's just kind of weird that it doesn't totally add up in terms of streams. Like, I don't know why like Post Malone can do damn near gold in 1 week, but these guys can't hit 70. Like, it's just weird that one is so much less popular than the other, given how popular hip hop is overall. You'd think Rae Sremmurd is one of those acts that most of hip hop would be excited to listen to as soon as it drops, but maybe that's not the case.
Rae Sremmurd needs to pick up an acoustic guitar and start singing some like punk emo song from the early thousands.
Well, maybe Sway's feature on Beer Bongs and Bentleys will drive more people to this album. Let's hope.
Yeah, I definitely hope, because it's a sad world when Post Malone is getting a lot more love than Rae Sremmurd. So
I do take solace in the fact that Drake will no doubt blow away his streaming week record once Scorpion comes out. So
no doubt.
He won't keep that record.
It's just a matter of time, basically.
Yep.
So that's going to be it for the week. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties. Anything that we missed this week, Dave, that you wanted to get to that we can save for a future week?
Well, there's just some stuff coming out they'll probably talk about in the next week or two. The Seagull, this movie comes out with Saoirse Ronan. Any listener of Nostalgia will know how high we were on her in Lady Bird. So I'm excited to check that movie out. It's got Annette Bening in it and Corey Stoll as well as Ronan. So excited for that. Terminal, this like noir crime movie with Margot Robbie, looks pretty cool. That's also coming out. And then on the music front, Charlie Puth is dropping his sophomore album, Voice Notes. His debut single, Attention, came out like a year ago. And he's weird because, as most of you know, See You Again, his song Wiz Khalifa, is the second most viewed video on YouTube. It was number one until Despacito passed it. It's got damn near 5 billion views or whatever it is. But then his debut album, 9-Track Mind, was critically panned. It's got like a 2.5 on Pitchfork, for example. So I'm excited. I'm not excited, but I'm interested to see how he follows up his fame in terms of whether he can make a critically liked project. And then T Grizzly's debut album also drops this Friday.
So a lot of music, a lot of movies to be talking about. We're gonna be talking about some things that we haven't gotten to, some albums, some little movies that we've seen but haven't talked about in the pod yet in a couple of weeks. So if there's something that we haven't gotten to, something that we should be getting to, tweet at us at Nowstalgia Pod, at Martin Swagger, and at Sheeny World Peace. Berate me on why I should upgrade my laptop so I don't have the technical difficulties anymore. And yeah, just give us any feedback at Nowstalgia Pod. Go to YouTube and subscribe. SoundCloud.com/NowstalgiaPod, and give us a rating review on iTunes. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week. You will definitely see me next week. Any last thoughts for the people, Dave?
We are now on iHeartRadio, so if that's where you get your podcasts, we are there.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.